Grief is complicated. It starts with a loss. It seems to go through stages. And it doesn't have a clear ending. What we do know is that God is present with us as we grieve. Looking back at the journey of Job, we can learn some tools to help others as they grieve.
If you're not a Chiefs fan, you won't enjoy the first part of the sermon today. I apologize. Some things have to be talked about. It was last week, I think it was like Friday-ish, and my oldest son comes into the living room where I'm watching TV and says, "Hey, Dad, what are you doing on Sunday?" And I'm like, church? No, what are you doing in the afternoon? I don't know, probably watching football in the living room. Do you want to go to the game? Now, the interesting thing is, it's supposed to be the dad that takes the son to the game. It's supposed to go like this. "Hey, son, cancel your plans with your friends. We're going to the game Sunday afternoon, and just so you know, Dad got the tickets from friends of his, and so you're going to have to behave because it's going to reflect on Dad." Instead, the conversation went more like this. "Okay, when we go, these are my friends, Dad. I need you to not be weird or lame." Got it. First NFL game he'd ever been to. And I told him, "You have peaked at 14. Now, some of you that are Chiefs fans might not have felt confident, okay? That's okay. Going into the game, did anybody feel that it was a 50-50 proposition at best because it was going to be a close game? Okay, all right, so we're on the same page. It was like we're going into home field advantage, but we've got our breath and we're holding it and we're just hoping for the best, right? If you didn't see the game, if you forgot how it ended, if you don't mind seeing it again, let me just give you a quick recap of the last 2 minutes of the game, okay? And I'm a statistics guy, so we're gonna do a little bit of statistics. So it started at 2-minute warning, and the Bills have the ball at like the 25 or something like that, and it's 4th and 13. Do you remember this? Okay, the Chiefs have an 82.7% chance to win the game because they're ahead 26-21. 4th and 13 is going to be incomplete or short. Then the Chiefs just sit on the ball, right? And we're feeling good about life at this point, aren't we? We've gotten Allen into 4th and 5 and 4th and 7 and 4th and 2, and he just kind of gallivants for the first down, and we've seen too much of it. But 4th and 13, we can spy you there. And so we're feeling good about life, except for this guy nobody'd ever heard of, named Gabriel Davis, decided to whisper in Mike Hughes' ear, "You should back up, turn to your right, and then fall down, and I'll take care of the rest." And that's exactly what happened, because the next time that we look at is 1:54 left in the game, and now the 82.7% chance of us winning has turned into a 75.6% chance of the Bills winning. Now, against anybody else, that 75.6 would be much higher, right? But this is the Chiefs. And so I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what anybody else is thinking, I'm thinking, I'm kind of not too worried about this. We got 3 timeouts, we almost got 2 full minutes, and we're a passing offense. You notice how I use the word "we" a lot here, right? Okay, I'll get to my team later because I'm nervous as all get out about that. And the problem is that any sane fan thinks one thing: bleed the clock. We're not worried at all about scoring. Bleed the clock. The only problem is that Tyreek Hill is on the Chiefs. And what Tyreek Hill does is he takes a 13-yard pass and goes 64 yards with it. Now, as you're about to watch this clip, I want you to know the peace sign that he offers to the D-back is not a nice thing to do. It's not a, I wish peace for you in your life. It's, goodbye, brother. And they fined him $10,300 for it. Look it. Bye-bye.
It's Hill in the open. Cuts it upfield. He might be gone. He is. Kansas City takes the lead with a minute to go from 64. Incredible yard.
Let's go to the next slide. We're feeling good about life. Now we're up by 4. There's a minute left. And the chances are 91.5. Against any other team, they should be much, much, much higher. Was anybody else nervous? Did anybody else think there was too much time? Yes, me too. After screaming and yelling and punching and hugging my son, I said, too much time. Now, I knew that Josh Allen could matriculate the ball down the field and score a touchdown, but what I didn't know was that he was a master clock operator. And so you guys know, with 18 seconds, he snaps the ball, finds Gabriel Davis for the 4th touchdown of the day, and with 13 seconds left, the game is over, right? I mean, let's put 13 seconds up there. 98.9%. Okay? I don't make the stats, I just report them. Okay? This is how incredible this whole thing is. Now, you guys know what happens next. 2 quick passes and a field goal into overtime, and Mahomes takes them all the way down the field because the overtime rules are broken, and Andy Reid fought for it in 2018, and the Bills voted against it like everybody else. Blah, 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 blah. What I want you to see is the 2 passes from Travis Kelce's point of view. The first when he talks to Tyreek Hill, the second when he talks to Patrick Mahomes. Here we go.
And now the Chiefs have got to somehow get in field goal range.
Hey, 10. They might man you up. I'm saying go outside and come back in like you're running a route outside. That way when you come back in, I can get in the way.
They actually have a chance to get Bucker in field goal range here.
Hey. They play it like that. That seam is open.
8 seconds left, down 3.
I mean, I don't know any other way to tell you that dude's going to be a coach someday. That was amazing. 98.9% chance. It's also the first time I've ever showed a TikTok on the screen at church. That's incredible. In the history of the NFL, only twice has a quarterback thrown for 300 yards, 70% completion, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and led their team in rushing. They're named Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen last Sunday. It was an incredible game. If you are a Bills fan, can you imagine how you would feel? If you're a Chiefs fan from 3 years ago when they didn't get the coin toss in overtime, do you know how that feels? Sports is a shallow example, but a very good example of highs and lows and not very much in between. Now, all of that has absolutely nothing to do with the sermon. So, now, rough transition. Okay, what I thought last week that the 49ers were going to lose to the Packers. And then what I was going to do is I was going to come in and talk to you about grief from a first-person perspective. But you know, I mean, last-minute field goal to win. So with 13 seconds left, when I was in shock and awe at the Bills and Chiefs game, I thought, okay, if I'm very tender and very careful, I can use today as an example of grief. But, you know, Mahomes and Garoppolo, they don't help a brother out. 13 seconds left. I got an Easter sermon about 13 seconds, but April's a while away, so we'll save that. But if anything, friends, I'm in some version of positive denial that what actually happened last week actually happened. Anybody else feeling that? My wife and my son were watching a cartoon show at home. I read a stat that 92% of the Kansas City area was watching the Chiefs game. They were part of the 8%. So the next night, all four of us sat down and watched the third and fourth quarters together and relived the whole thing. And I still really don't believe it. I mean, I just can't believe what I saw. And that's kind of what denial is. It's the rejection of the truth even when the truth is factual. It's really incredible to have that kind of experience because for me, the past 2 years have not been a high like last Sunday was. There have been a ton of situations and people with which I have had grief. I don't know about you. I could just be preaching for the next 5 weeks all to myself. But think about what has changed in the last 2 years. A lot of people, a significant amount of people that you and I know have lost their job or lost their income in the pandemic. And that's really what grief is, right? It's a sense of loss. A lot of people have lost businesses, restaurants that used to be open. Man, I thought for the longest time AMC wasn't going to make it. I was worried. I go to like 30 movies a year. There were things in my brain that I thought, this will never be like this ever again. And this sense of loss can sometimes feel overwhelming. Just the community and the togetherness that we have tried to experience in the last 2 years has been radically different. Proms, canceled. Graduations, canceled. Neighborhood parties, canceled. Christmas worship service together in 2020, canceled. And so now I stand over on the edge of this stage and I baptize somebody through the air, 10 feet apart, right? It's just different. And it's okay if in the last 2 years, at any one of those steps, you have felt some sense of loss. And honestly, I think denial as part of loss is a huge gift from God. In 1969, a researcher named Stephanie Kubler Ross came out with a paper, and for the first time, we were introduced to the 5 stages of grief. I'm gonna put a little graphic up here. The 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The idea of denial is this saying to truth, it's not real. Even if it's manifest in front of you and other people know that it's real. Denial is a coping mechanism. All of these really are. Coping mechanisms that we use in the midst of grief when grief can feel overwhelming. Now, we're not meant to stay in any of these forever, but they do serve a purpose. And so all I want to do, I'm not saying that Kubler Ross's work is the most awesome, best ever grief work that you can find, but it is very substantial. And it's helpful kind of placing ourselves when we go through some of these various stages. They're not linear. They don't go from 1 to 5. You don't have to graduate from 1 to get to 2. You may not experience one of these stages. You may go back and forth. All of that's possible. Friends, I have been denying the Super Bowl from 2 years ago for the last 2 years. It didn't happen. In my version of that Super Bowl, the Niners are still up 10. They still have the ball in the Chiefs' 49, and there's still 11 minutes and 49 seconds left. But that's not your version, is it? Just give me time. And if nonsense happens, and in 2 weeks we're playing again, it'll be week 3 bargaining. And we will have some bargaining to do before that game starts. After that game, I will be in depression for week 4. It all lines up really great. But I just want you to know, it's my opinion that these 4 stages are gifts from God. I truly believe that grief is simply the experience of loss, and it's our mental, our physical, our spiritual, and our social response to how we experience that. Denial, most simply for me, is a gift God gives us to take time and space to cope and process with what we have just experienced. Because there are times, friends, when it's not a job. There are times when it's not a restaurant. There are times when it is a person that we have lost, either through relationship or death. There are times when our health deteriorates and we lose the ability to do things that we've always been able to do. Loss is a part of life. And Christians aren't exempt from it just because we love God. And so what we're going to do is we're going to dive in one of the most heartbreaking stories in Scripture, because it's my belief that looking through the lens of Job in the Old Testament will give us a greater picture of who God is, what faith in the midst of adversity looks like, and how humanity is not something for you and I to beat up on, but to be thankful for. Okay? This is hopefully going to be a permission-giving type of deal. And I just want to say at the outset, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist or a social worker. I'm just a dude that's going to read Scripture with you, and we'll chat about it a little bit. So if you want to follow along, we're going to be on page 430 in the Old Testament. In the next 5 weeks, we're all going to be in Job together. And let me tell you, we're going to start in Job chapter 2. By the time we get to chapter 2 in Job, Job has already experienced a significant amount of grief. His wealth is gone, and his 10 kids are all dead. That's chapter 1. So you can imagine how somebody in Job's perspective would feel like faith in God is still something that's difficult to maintain, and why being in denial might be something that Job might be going through, but certainly grief and loss, for sure. Now, this has a difficult start to the passage because this raises the question, why do bad things happen to good people? How can there be a God if these things take place? Because this starts with a very weird conversation between God and some other heavenly beings plus Satan. And God and Satan getting into a little discussion together. And it's very odd. We'll talk about it here in a second. Chapter 2, verse 1 through about 6 or 7 here. One day, the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them, to present himself to the Lord. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down on it." Basically, where have you been, Satan? "Oh, I've been seeing everything that you've got in earth." And then God says, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. He still persists in his integrity, even after you have incited me against him, to destroy him for no reason." So at this point, God is saying, are you as impressed as I am with Job as a human, for him to not lose integrity after losing 10 kids, for him to not give up on me? What kind of person has that kind of faith, Satan? Isn't that important? Isn't that amazing? And Satan merely responds in verse 4, "Well, skin for skin, God. All that people have, they will grieve to save their lives, or they give to save their lives. Stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well, he is in your power, only spare his life." Satan asserts this hypothesis that is haunting. God, everybody loves a blessing. So yeah, when he's one of the wealthiest dudes around, he's got 10 kids and a wife that love him and everything's great. Yes, he's very faithful. But let me tell you something. God, if you were to take away his stuff, if you were to curse his own skin, if you were to put sores on his body from the top of his head to the bottom of his foot, how faithful would he be then? And God says, okay, let's see. Go ahead. Verse 7, so Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, inflicted loathsome sores on Job from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Job took a potsherd from which to scrape himself and sat among the ashes, basically a broken piece of pottery, and he scraped some of the gunk from the sores that were on his skin away. Then his wife said to him, "Job, do you still persist in your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job said to her, "You speak as any foolish person would speak. Shall we receive the good at the hand of God and not receive the bad?" In all of this, Job did not sin with his lips. So basically, he's covered from head to toe. And his wife goes, "Job, I love God too, but something is up here." Another translation of curse God says deny God. Just give your faith up. Clearly, your faith is not helping you out, and this is getting ridiculous. It might even be one of the causes of harming you. You just got to stop. And Job is resilient in his righteousness and says, "I will not." Now, I got to tell you, friends, if we were in Job's position, we had lost all of our kids, we had lost all of our wealth, and then we start losing our health, how strong would our faith be? This is the main hypothesis of Satan in all of Scripture. Humans only love God when they get blessed. And when things don't go their way, the first person they give up on is God. And I can't tell you that hasn't been true in my life. There are times in my life where I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. If you've ever felt that way, it's a human response and it's okay. This is my opinion about denial. Denying that a job is lost, denying that a Super Bowl is lost, denying that a relationship is gone, denying that the stock market will ever get that high again, that's all a part of the human experience. It's a gift that we're given to just navigate and understand the grief in space and time and process that we can handle it. But friends, I don't think there's any greater danger than denying God. For one simple reason, I think God is our greatest asset. Who gave us life? Who gave us breath? Who gave us talent? Who gave us our support system? Who put the environment around us that we have? Not that life has been perfect, but who has done that? I love my wife. She didn't give me life or breath. That came from God. There is nothing one human being can do for you that God cannot. And there are so many things God can do that other humans can't. And so why is it that when we have some sort of adversity, some suffering, some hurt, some pain, why is it that God would even potentially be on the list of who we would deny? It's like taking our greatest asset and saying, no, thank you. This is one of my favorite parts of this story. Verse 11, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all the troubles that Job had come upon, each of them set out from his home. Eliphaz from the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. Don't ever say that there's not any good names out there still. They met together to go and console and comfort Job. And when they saw him from a distance, they didn't even recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept aloud, tore their robes, threw dust in the air upon their heads, and sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights. And no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. In the midst of whatever's happening, God comes to us in various ways. This is the Jewish practice of sitting Shiva with someone, spending a week of them without talking, but just immersing yourself in their hurt and their pain and being there with them, sitting in their suffering with them. That kind of gift is hard to put a price tag on. Because when God sees us in our suffering, we are not left alone. How in the world do we go through some of the things we go through if we don't bring God along for the ride? If we deny that God is present when God is factually there? How do we not lean on God when things are tough? Is God just our blessing administrator? We put 75 cents in and hit E5 and our blessing comes out? God is there at the best and God is there at the worst. God creates Adam and Eve and then a chapter later they've already disobeyed him. And what does God do? What's the first question recorded in the Bible? Where are you? God knows where they are, but he's searching and seeking and pursuing. And when we are hurt, when we are in pain, God will do that for us as well. What we need to know, friends, is that following Jesus does not mean that suffering and hurt and pain and grief and loss won't come our way, but is the recognition that when it does, that God will be present with us. And one of the gifts we get is a coping mechanism called denial, where we get time to process, time and space, to process this hurt and this loss that we are experiencing. If you look back at some of the darkest moments in your life, wherever those might be, can you look back in retrospect and see the presence of God in those? One of the things that makes us look forward to heaven is that it's described in Revelation as a place with no more mourning, no more crying, no more death, and no more pain. Which insinuates that this is a life with those things. It doesn't make this life awful and that life perfect and better in every way. What it does is, it makes this life human. But at the end of this life, when we can't do it anymore, for whatever reason and however long our life is and whatever way we go, heaven is the place where all of the humanity that we have been living through gets stripped away so that it's no longer a burden that we have to carry. In this life, there will be many highs and many lows. And in those lows, we are offered the wonderful, long, sometimes short, sometimes long, very different for everybody process of grief. We do not grieve things we don't first love. It's a blessing to love things. But when those things are gone, when there is a loss, grief is a gift that we get to process those. And the first step in that process can be denial. Time and space to just navigate and cope with what is happening in our very midst. We will go through the rest of Job's story and find out much more of what happens to him and how he processes that, the good and the bad, and see the end of his story at the end. But one thing that chapter 2 reminds me that is so important is that in the midst of our denial, we have to try to figure out a way not to let go of God in our grief. How not to tell our greatest asset, the person who loves us the most, the person who listens to our prayers and sits Shiva with us all the time, we don't need you, we don't want you, go away. God does not cause the things that cause us grief, but God is ever present to build us back up and help to try to make us whole. God never promises life will be the same, but God does promise that in your humanity you will be loved all the way through. So, my hope for you today, for this week, is that if you come across a time in life where you need time and space to process or cope with grief you have just received, know that denial could potentially be a gift in order to slow things down, to make your way through. But please take God with you the entire time. Allow him to love you. Allow him to heal you. Allow him to wrap you up in his everlasting arms.